The Friday dinner rush had transformed Maple Grove Diner into its usual sea of laughter, clinking dishes and impatient customers. Among the busy waitstaff was 26-year-old Maya Johnson, a hard-working black waitress known for treating every customer with kindness, regardless of who they were. Maya had worked at the diner for 4 years, helping support her younger brother through college after their parents passed away. Her manager, Steve Collins, cared more about appearances than compassion. He believed every customer should fit the diner's polished image, especially on busy weekends when wealthy families filled the booths. Just before sunset, the front door opened, and an older man wearing a worn leather biker jacket, faded jeans, dusty boots, and a gray beard quietly walked inside. The stranger looked exhausted after a long journey and politely sat in an empty booth near the window, asking only for a glass of water and a menu. Several customers glanced at him with judgment, whispering because of his rough appearance. Steve noticed the biker almost immediately. Fearing that the man's appearance might scare away customers, he pulled Maya aside before she could approach the table. "Don't waste your time on him," Steve whispered sharply. "People like that never order much and they'll ruin the atmosphere. Tell him we're full and ask him to leave." Maya looked toward the lonely biker, who quietly stared out the window without bothering anyone. She knew turning him away simply because of his appearance was wrong. Taking a deep breath, she politely answered, "He's a customer just like everyone else. He deserves to be treated with respect." Ignoring Steve's order, Maya carried a fresh pot of coffee, a warm meal, and a friendly smile to the biker's table. "Good evening, sir," she said warmly. "Welcome. What can I get for you?" The biker looked up with surprise. It had been a long time since someone had welcomed him without judgment. He thanked her quietly and ordered the simplest meal on the menu. Steve watched from across the diner, furious that Maya had ignored his instructions. He stormed toward the booth and loudly announced, "If you want to serve him so badly, you can start looking for another job." The entire restaurant fell silent as customers turned to watch. Maya stood calmly beside the biker and replied, "If showing kindness costs me this job, then it's a price I'm willing to pay." The biker lowered his head, clearly uncomfortable that she was risking her career for a stranger. Just then the front door opened again. 3 men in expensive suits stepped inside and looked directly toward the biker before smiling with relief. One of them walked over and respectfully said, "Mr. Walker, we've been searching everywhere for you. The charity board meeting starts in 30 minutes. Every conversation in the diner stopped." Steve's confident expression disappeared as he realized the dirty biker might not be who anyone thought he was. The 3 men in tailored suits hurried toward the booth, where the biker quietly finished his meal. One of them respectfully shook his hand and said, "Mr. Walker, the board members are waiting. The foundation cannot begin without you." Every customer in the diner watched in stunned silence. Steve's face turned pale as he realized the man he had tried to throw out wasn't an ordinary traveler. His name was James Walker, a retired Army veteran and the founder of one of the country's largest charitable organizations, a foundation that had built hospitals, schools, and homeless shelters across the nation. Although worth hundreds of millions of dollars, James refused luxury whenever he traveled. He often rode his old motorcycle across the country to visit the communities his foundation supported, believing he could only understand people's struggles by living among them. Looking at Maya, James smiled warmly and said, "You're the first person today who saw a human being instead of a jacket covered in road dust." Steve immediately rushed over with an awkward smile, apologizing and insisting that James move to the VIP dining area. James politely declined. "The food tastes better where kindness is served," he replied. Then he turned to Maya and asked her to sit for a moment. Embarrassed, she explained that she might lose her job for ignoring her manager's orders. James looked around the restaurant before calmly asking every customer a question. "How many of you would want your own son, father, or brother judged by his clothes instead of his character?" The diner became completely silent. Several customers lowered their heads in shame, realizing they too had assumed the worst about him without saying a single word. Before leaving, James stood up and addressed everyone in the diner. "A business isn't remembered for its menu," he said. "It's remembered for how it treats the people others ignore." He handed Maya a business card and thanked her for her courage. Then he quietly informed Steve that his charity foundation was searching for restaurants to provide meals for veterans and homeless families. Maple Grove Diner had been one of the finalists for a multi-million-dollar partnership, but after witnessing how one customer had been treated, James announced they would be choosing another restaurant instead. Steve stood speechless as James walked out with the executives. Maya believed she had just lost her job, but she had no idea that her act of kindness was about to change her future forever. The following morning, Maya arrived at the diner expecting to collect her final paycheck. She believed Steve had already decided to fire her for disobeying his orders. Instead, she found several luxury SUVs parked outside the restaurant, and a crowd gathered near the entrance. Inside stood James Walker, accompanied by members of his charitable foundation and local news reporters. Steve nervously walked forward, hoping to repair the damage from the previous evening, but James politely stopped him. Turning to everyone inside the diner, he said, "Yesterday, I wasn't testing your restaurant. I was reminding myself that true characters still exist." He then looked at Maya with a warm smile. "While everyone else judged me by my appearance, you simply saw a hungry man who needed a meal." The room fell silent as James announced that his foundation had decided to partner with a different local restaurant and would instead personally support Maya's future. James revealed that his foundation had recently launched a nationwide program to provide free meals and job training for struggling veterans and homeless families. He invited Maya to become the director of the new community outreach program, offering her a salary far greater than she had ever earned at the diner. Tears filled Maya's eyes as she struggled to believe what she was hearing. "I only did what anyone should do," she whispered. James smiled and replied, "No, you did what too few people are willing to do." He then turned toward Steve and calmly added, "Businesses don't lose opportunities because of poor marketing. They lose them when they forget basic human dignity." Steve apologized publicly, admitting that he had judged someone without knowing their story. Maya accepted his apology, reminding him that real change begins when people learn from their mistakes instead of hiding them. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of a newly opened community cafe funded by the Walker Foundation. Every day, veterans, homeless families, and struggling workers were welcomed with hot meals, respect, and hope. James often arrived on his old motorcycle, still wearing the same weathered leather jacket that had once caused so many people to judge him. This time, however, everyone greeted him with smiles instead of suspicion. Looking around the busy cafe, Maya realized that one simple decision to serve a meal to a stranger had changed countless lives, including her own. As the evening sun shone through the cafe windows, James quietly said, "Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything." Maya smiled, knowing those words would remain with her forever. Story lesson: never judge a person by their appearance. Kindness shown to one stranger can change many lives. True character is revealed by how we treat those who have nothing to offer us in return.